In the late 1990s, Ghana found itself at a critical juncture in its educational journey. Rapidly rising enrollments, coupled with escalating demands on educational resources, painted a stark reality of overcrowded classrooms and deteriorating infrastructure. As the strain on government resources intensified, students and educators alike voiced their discontent over the introduction of cost-sharing arrangements by universities. This confluence of challenges ignited a fervent call for change, a call that would eventually give rise to an educational financing mechanism.
In our days, in 1997, there was new pressure from government and there was pressure from the public as to finding alternative ways of financing higher education and tertiary education. And it was our collective resolve and quest that higher education should never ever be a privilege of the rich, and it should not be accessible only to those who could afford it. The prime principle was to fight that tuition at all levels of education must remain free and accessible. And that we've been able to maintain up to date. Today, in our higher education institutions, tuition is still free. At the time in 1997, whilst government was looking for alternative, sustainable ways of financing higher education, we embarked on a series of actions, a series of demonstrations to protest. And the protest was intended to achieve preserving higher education being accessible to all, regardless of the purse of your father, regardless of the purse of your mother. For us as National Union of Ghana Students, whilst government presented its case, our case was that introduce an education trust fund to complement, not to supplement, to complement the financing of higher education. We demonstrated, but at least we argued that government can introduce cost sharing in so long as an education trust fund was established. That will be a compromise for us to negotiate. I still remember being pelted with water and even shoes and handkerchiefs at the University of Cape Coast auditorium.
I read through a lot of documents and found that the student population in particular had been asking for a fund of some kind, and that there was no such fund that will help to improve their educational opportunities in terms of funding for tertiary sector education. In a cabinet meeting, when I took the idea of the GET fund as a policy and also as the law to the cabinet, because the cabinet had to approve before it comes to parliament, the cabinet rejected it 2 times because we're in an election year, the election 2000, and there was a fear that any new fundraising mechanism, 2.5%, you're going to tell Ghanaians an election year that you're going to tax them that very year or not the following year, 2.5%, it will affect the election results. The cabinet was really adamant that we can't introduce, or a GET fund law rather, into the Ghanaian economy in an election year. And at the third time, we had Dr. Kwabena J as the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs at the time, and Professor Mills turned to him during the debate and asked him direct question, Dr. Kwabena J, if this bill that is being proposed for a GET fund comes to Parliament, where you are the majority leader, do you think you can mobilize support for it? Kwabena J, who had been a university lecturer, my actually university lecturer in psychology in those days, agreed with Professor Mills. A direct question. He agreed that, yeah, Prof, if this comes, I'm sure I can mobilize enough support for it. And that was what made GET Fund possible.
Driven by the imperative to address the rapidly rising enrollments at all levels of education and the escalating demands on educational resources, GET Fund was established to bridge the gap and support the delivery of quality education in Ghana. With overcrowded and dilapidated infrastructure threatening to undermine educational progress and competing demands on government resources stretching thin, the need for a dedicated mechanism to finance educational endeavors became glaringly evident.
Strengthening these other educational institutions to enable them to support education as a whole. And of course, GET Fund came along as one of the new instruments that would propel the education system by giving the infrastructure support, by giving scholarship support, laboratories and other vehicles, transportation and things that all schools needed.
Now, our universities just lack capacity in terms of academic facility, even lecture theaters, hostel accommodation was a problem. Today, GET Fund is providing relief, adequate relief in supporting higher education, basic education, secondary education.
In the mid-1990s, Ghana